Get ready for a nerdy ass vlog. Okay, today is Wednesday, hump day. It's the end of the day. It's just about midnight. I came home, I scarfed down some dinner, watched a little bit of Seinfeld. We're getting to bed. Undertaking a bit of a project on the 540. Ultimate objective is to understand the iBus and multimedia system in this car a little bit better. Secondary objective is to add some features and functions to the car. So, 2002 540 DSP non-navigation. Okay, that's important. The DSP part, at least, is important. So that means, of course, that we have the CD53 radio, and the radio module in this car, being a non-navigation vehicle, is here behind this little door. So you get the CD player in there, and then this is your MID. I was under the impression that to retrofit Sirius to the E39 required navigation. The BM53 radio module in the trunk, and then your board monitor or navigation display up here, and no MID. That is not the case. You can retrofit nav to a car with the MID. Now, the MID doesn't matter. You could have one from 2000, 2003. I don't think it even matters. Maybe even the early 97, 98 cars. This is just a display with a button interface. Your logic comes from your CD player module. The CD player in the E39 was also used in the E53 X5, potentially other cars as well, though I'm not going to commit myself to that yet. I've got more to learn. So I took out the one that was in here today. It was original to the car, mid-2002 model, and put in this, which is a late 2005. It's one of the last part numbers available for this interface. And what that does, the hardware is the same. After talking to Ted, the Blue Bus developer, he said the hardware is the same. It's the firmware that's different. You can't update the firmware unless you're able to desolder the CPU, build a custom rig. It's not something you can do in WinKFP or ISTA-P, anything like that. So we do have to change the hardware. So it's a plug-and-play installation for the radio module. Now that adds a bit of logic. Your 2003 E39s out of the box supported an auxiliary input. This is a April 02 car that technically did not support an auxiliary input. So when you look at ECS Tuning and FCP Euro and all these parts vendors, they say only for 9 of 02 and later cars. Well, all you got to do is change the radio module. And then in the connector, the big connector that plugs into the back of the CD53 here, you have really 3 or 4 different pin blocks. And some of them are spade pins that are permanent to the connector. You can't really add or remove those without physically adding and removing the pins. But then there's 2 kind of auxiliary 2x6, I believe, or 2x8, 12 or 14 pin blocks. And this car from factory had both of those completely empty. Now, what really threw me for a loop today, I compared this to an 03 540 M-Tech, and it had a connector in there. And more importantly, in the trunk, right back here in the left corner, it had 2 connectors for preparation of the CD changer. You had your 3-pin iBus, which connects you to power, ground, and data bus. And then you have your 6-pin analog DSP. Now, they went from digital DSP to analog. That's the opposite of what you would think. The early cars all had digital DSP for your CD player, which is your single-pole coaxial connector straight to the amplifier. On the M5s in the United States, which all came with navigation from factory, we saw that digital DSP cable get replaced by an analog 6-pin DSP cable for 2002 as they migrated to the BM53 from the C43 radio. That's not the case here. This 02 540 does not have a 6-pin analog audio wire in the back for the CD changer, even though it's coded in the vehicle order when you decode the vid online, and then it has a little black plastic circle in here that says, pre-wired for 6-disc changer. In fact, I even have the little door here that's made for the 6-disc CD changer. I don't know if this car came with one or not. I never got it. But it, has the cutout to support that. So I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to do what I'm trying to do here without that cable? Well, what am I trying to do? So this is the factory Sirius XM module, generation 3, brand new out of the box. Yes, you can still buy these, and no, they're not terribly expensive. So this thing plugs in a few different ways. You rob your CD changer 3-pin iBus. There's your power, ground, and data. Then you have your audio output, which has to be analog DSP. You can't do this with a coax cable, which is super annoying on this module. So I'm thinking, how am I going to get audio out of the Sirius XM module without that cable? Well, I'm going to have to run the cable. And initially I'm thinking, okay, we're going to have to add the wire to the back of the radio, bring it down through the center console, take the rear seats, partial shelf, carpeting out, run everything back under the rear deck, into the trunk, and to the module. Then I talked to Ted, and he's saying, okay, we only need 3 wires for that. You have your left channel, your right channel, and a ground. So what we can do is tap into the phone connector, which is going to be underneath the armrest. And I actually have a connector in there right now for wireless charging in that tray. We're just going to add 3 signal wires to that. So then I only have to extend it from the armrest area up to the radio. The rest of the wiring under the rear seats and through the rear bulkhead or firewall is going to be complete. That's going to come out back here at our 54-pin phone connector. Now, some of these cars only have SES, and if you have an SES and a 54-pin, you have to jump your SES. So that's what I did today. I installed the jumper and the black SES connector, which has improved Blue Bus audio quality somehow. I didn't realize that. So if you have the black connector, use it. If you only have the blue, use it. If you only have the DB25, that sucks. That's like the LPT line printer terminal connector from the 90s. It'll work, it's just not ideal. So ultimately, we're gonna repurpose some of the wiring in here. I'm gonna add 3 more pins to this and take them straight into the Sirius, and that's gonna be our audio signal from the Sirius tuner up through the cabin to the radio. And then to connect your Blue Bus back into the loop, you have to use the slave cable. Slave cable here is still available. It's in Germany, it's like 10 bucks, but it'll show up in a few weeks. I actually purchased one about a year ago, anticipating something like this, so I paid less than that and had it in stock. And that is for daisy chaining your CD changer, aka Blue Bus, because that replaces the CD player, off of the Sirius module. So what we're able to do is just plug this cable in right here. It comes over to a 3-pin iBus and a 6-pin analog DSP. Now, we're not using analog DSP. I'm using coaxial digital DSP straight into the amplifier, but I plugged it in just so things are clean. The Blue Bus is configured to use the digital output. So at this point, what I've got to do when I receive my antenna adapter, and Ted's wiring harness is connect up Sirius. We'll have Sirius on the MID, which, yes, looks ridiculous. It's not going to be ideal using a display panel like that to navigate the Sirius XM system, but kind of an exercise of what's possible and how it's going to work in these cars. I had no idea that on essentially a 97 528, you can add a factory Sirius XM solution if you're willing to change a lot of components and do a little bit of wiring. But you can get away doing that with only genuine BMW parts. So then we get into the bracket. When I retrofit Sirius to my M5, it was just about 10 years ago, I bought the last bracket in the world for the E39. Now, I'm missing a couple things here, and that's why I don't think this car came with a CD changer, is because the bracket for it is not here. The Sirius bracket installs on top of the CD changer bracket, which I don't have. Now, I have used ones from M5s that I dismantled, so I will be installing that or retrofitting that over the upcoming days or weeks. And that will allow me to manufacture, if that's 3D printing or hiring someone to scan and print, the Sirius bracket based off of my M5 bracket, which I removed today and played around in CAD a little bit. I used CAD in high school. I enjoyed it. I love the challenge. It was really cool to be able to make anything. And then I got away from it forever. I have no idea what the software was that I used back then, but I've gotten something new on the Mac. I played with it for several hours today. It's really frustrating trying to relearn that shit. I know what I want to do. I just don't know how to make the software do it. And I got a pretty rough mock-up made of the bracket. So I'm going to have to measure some holes. Maybe depending on the cost, we'll print a prototype and see how things fit. But I don't know. I really like Sirius Radio. I think it's really cool to be able to have an unlimited stream of music playing in the car. If your phone is dead, if you're on a long road trip and tired of your local music, even though I have tens of thousands of songs, I have a huge library, but to be able to listen to news and live sports over satellite radio is just really cool. So that's what's coming to the 540. I'm not sure if there's going to be an E39 source video or not, as I found out right now at 10 minutes into this clip, nearly. There's a lot to talk about, and every car is different, depending on specific production month, on optional equipment, on the market in which it was sold. And it doesn't seem to be as cut and dry as, oh, your car is before this date, therefore it has, or after this date, therefore it has. It's almost down to the guy building the car, which equipment he picked off the wall. That's enough nerd talk for me. I got to get to bed. It was a pretty good day. We got a ton of stuff done at the shop. That 650's coming apart with the convertible for the engine work. And my God, the N62 is an absolute nightmare. I'll get you an update on that tomorrow. Talk Thursday. Good night.